Hello there. So here we are for episode number 1, and there was a lot of activity over this weekend. So this is going to be a lot of fun. Deepseek, that's what we're going to talk about. I had a bunch of friends reach out to me over the weekend on what this whole Deepseek thing was and why it matters. And the ones who did not reached out on Monday when they freaked out looking at their retirement accounts. Um, and they saw that their retirement accounts had fallen by 2 to 3%. What just happened? Okay, so let me explain it. The background on this is that a Chinese company, Deepseek, has managed to train a large language model very similar to ChatGPT, um, arguably just as good based on metrics, without a huge capital expenditure. Okay, so OpenAI, Meta, Google, the way they train these large language models is with tens of thousands of these GPUs. Okay, in fact, GPUs are so scarce that the U.S. government has put in export restrictions, restricting these items from going into China. Right? It's a critical input into our competitive power in large language models. Well, what this company DeepSeek did is that they used a new technique to train the model without tons of GPUs. In fact, supposedly they spent only $5 million. I know 5 million doesn't sound like only to most people, but just to put this in comparison, Microsoft has been thinking of spending hundreds of billions of dollars over many years. In fact, let me look over here, this article. They're planning to spend $80 billion on AI related data centers. So these are large expenditures that have been happening, mostly centered around large language models. Okay, so China was able to do this, and this sent NVIDIA stock crashing. So let me share the stock chart and you'll see Monday morning when the markets opened, their stock went from hovering around 140, 145 to plummeting down to 120. I think it even went down to 118. 118, 120, doesn't matter. Suffice it to say, the market cap of Nvidia, one of the largest companies in the US, went down by over 15%. Okay? That translates into hundreds of billions of dollars in market cap. Their market cap right now is standing just a tad bit under $3 trillion. Okay? Now, you probably don't have NVIDIA stock, at least not directly, in your 401k or IRA or in your university endowment, but I can guarantee that every single person who has an investment account, a retirement account, a pension account, was exposed to this. Why? Because when you look at the S&P 500, which is an index of 500 stocks that most people hold by default in their retirement accounts, pensions, etc., NVIDIA constitutes 6.5% of that index, right? So even though there's 500 stocks, not all of them are equally represented. 6.5% of the total amount is in NVIDIA. So when NVIDIA falls 15%, just do the math, that's a decent fall for the entire index, and based on that, for pretty much every endowment, pension, etc. Now, Nvidia is not the only one that fell. If you look at the top holdings on the S&P 500, there's also Microsoft. We mentioned them before. In fact, Microsoft has traditionally been the biggest partner for OpenAI. Investing in OpenAI and also benefiting from OpenAI's training. All of these companies were impacted, but especially NVIDIA and Microsoft, right? So what's going to happen here, right? So what China has basically done is that they have faced a shortage of something, and they have used interesting new ways to not need it anymore. And if you don't need tens of thousands of these any longer for training large language models, well then maybe Nvidia's market cap is and expected revenues are not quite what we were all expecting, right? So that's where this landed. To make it worse, what DeepSeek did, and I say worse from the perspective of OpenAI and from the perspective of Microsoft and others, but really good from the perspective of customers and the rest of industry. To make it worse or better, they gave away the model. They gave away all of the weights to it, how they train this. So this basically allows anyone to replicate what they have done. This is a big deal because Microsoft, OpenAI, others have spent enormous fortunes to train these foundation models. And now anyone can come in and train it, and they no longer may have the competitive advantage that they had. It's also pretty bad because the reason they're making these large investments into these foundation models is because they hope to reap the rewards of that, right? In the form of inference that they sell to consumers, right? Most consumers, either they pay monthly or corporations using API services, are typically consuming these large language models as a metered service. So the more you consume, the more you pay. Now imagine someone just comes along and gives it away for free. That's a big deal because it means that it reduces the cost of the product, right? There are now cheaper alternatives, and you can go with those cheaper alternatives. How does OpenAI make back all of the money that they invested into this? These are really, really big questions. If OpenAI was trading on the open market, I'm sure we would have seen an even bigger plummet than what we saw for NVIDIA, okay? It also opens up a lot of questions, right? People are seeing this as really bad. I am not on the producer side. You know, you can think of this as a stack. At the bottom of the stack is NVIDIA, which is producing the hardware, but you know, slightly above that stack are the cloud providers and hyperscalers, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, etc. Above that are some of the vendors that use this for inference, right? And above that are the clients, right? So I usually put myself in the client's perspective. And what I'm thinking is, wow, this is really good. The cost of inference just went way down. That means there are use cases that I could not have tackled last Friday that I can tackle right now. Those use cases just became cheaper. So the market, in my opinion, may have overreacted. Certainly not in the case of NVIDIA, Microsoft, but it may have overreacted because I think this grows the pie of potential large language model applications, right? It makes everything cheaper. You can put larger volumes. Things that may not have passed the cost benefit analysis before will pass the cost benefit analysis now. I think this is, honestly, a huge win for society. I do recognize that there are some losers in this, but this is part of a hot research area, right? People will come on top, they'll lose the top spot, etc. Suffice it to say, for America though, there is an interesting perspective, right? Because we have been talking about this project Stargate, which was announced just a week ago, and the amount of capital expenditure that we'd be investing into more of these data centers to train more of these large language models, right? It's an interesting perspective for us because this almost feels like a Sputnik moment. It feels like someone else has come and literally swiped away the prize from us, and we didn't even know it was possible. I think competition can be good, so I'm hoping that that we all progress. So now imagine that this company in China has been able to do this without GPUs. Imagine what we can do here in the US with the GPUs. So again, not to be sad. Overall, I think we have a lot of good things to look forward to. As always, These are my personal views, not the views of my company, my employer, the university, any of my portfolio companies, etc. Right? My views only. I look forward to hearing your reaction on this. Thank you very much.